Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store. It is 10 p.m. Gareth, I appreciate you joining us at such a late hour. As always, you always come through. Cheers to that. How's things?
Very good, thank you. Looking forward to a big event at the O2 this weekend. We'll get into it, no doubt. Derek Chisora trying to kind of come again, if you like, against Joe Joyce. It's been fun in the build-up so far, all of them climbing all over the O2 arena as we've seen. And they've been selling it very well. I'm looking forward to being involved. We're live on Talk Sport on Saturday night. Myself, John Rawling, Spencer Oliver, and Duke McKenzie. I'm looking forward to the build-up.
Let's just start there. I mean, it's back-to-back fight weeks for Frank Warren. Two brilliant cards. We've just come from Nathan Heaney, Brad Paul's terrific main event. Return of Chantel Cameron, who's won and back to winning ways under a new trainer. And then we're coming into this one where the main event. How do you see this main event as in terms of what's the narrative here? Derek Chisora apparently wants 50 fights. What does a win and a loss do for either of these men?
Well, I think it's a lose-lose for Joe Joyce, this fight, because we expect him to win. It's very important, the optics for him in this fight, that he looks really good. He laboured to victory a little bit over Cash Ali.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's coming off the back of those two devastating losses to Zhilei Zhang, and we know how good Zhilei Zhang is. But really, nothing less than, I think, than certainly a dominant performance, but really a stoppage against Derek Chisora is what most people will want from Joe Joyce. So if he does look good, look where he was a year and a half ago. We were salivating about fights with the likes of Deontay Wilder. That obviously a fight that would probably never happen now. Well, how he would fare against Anthony Joshua. Would he challenge Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk again because they'd met in the amateurs? And yet, you know, he knocked out Joseph Parker. He stopped Daniel Dubois with a fantastic jab. Look where he was flying high. Look where they are now. So there's so much riding on this film and so much on the line. He seemed pretty calm this week. I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. So there's a lot for him to do, but he's 39 in September. Derek's 40 already. There's a lot of work to do for Joe Joyce in this fight because we know how tough and resilient Derek Chisora is.
Funny how boxing works. I think, like you just said there, I had that sort of written down to mention. 18 months ago, we were talking about this is the man after his victories over the likes of Joseph Parker, previously,
and Daniel Dubois.
And Daniel Dubois. Just before he came up to the Zhang fights, and you're going, you know what? Can you imagine like a Wilder? Can you imagine Joshua, the problems, this, and this? Then all of a sudden, you know, he's come back and I think he can be forgiven in a lot of quarters. He's had two knockout losses, a laboured performance against Cash Ali, but he got the job done. Will it tell us a lot about him on Saturday night? Because you know what Dell's like. He will come. He'll come for war. That's what he does.
Yeah, he's been selling the fight already, Derek. There's Joe looks very calm. Johnny Fisher was telling me on Saturday night that Joe's been working with a sports psychologist as well. I like the sound of that. You know, Joe can't change his style at his age, in my view. And the big test is really whether he can handle that big overhand right from Derek that he'll throw over and over again. And he'll play that peekaboo style. He's got to keep him on the end of the jab and hit him hard. Listen, I'm not wishing any ill on Derek Chisora. I mean, I see Joe as a big favourite in this fight, but he's got to get back to the ebullient Joe Joyce who dominates. I mean, the trouble is, in your mind, the optics are those two Zhilei Zhang fights where he looked too easy to hit. I know that they're sly and unseen, those left hands from Zhang. Look what he did to Parker in the first half of their fight. Had him in all kinds of trouble. So this really tells us where Joe is, because a loss against Derek Chisora would be catastrophic. That's why I say, that's why I call it a lose-lose, because if he doesn't look good, the jury will still be out that he's too easy to hit. And if he loses, or if he doesn't look great, or he doesn't move into that big mix of the top 10, he's going to become, if he wants to keep going, let's say 39 in September, he's going to become a gatekeeper for the likes of Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clark, maybe even Moses Tauma if he's around long enough. So Joe's really got to put in a stellar performance on Saturday night. And I'm looking forward to it, though, because they're two great icons in British boxing.
Yeah, 100%. I concur with that. Something else from this weekend, we may as well touch on it, that's just gone. I said this weekend, middle of the week. Jake Paul, Mike Perry. Spoke to you, mentioned you were going to watch it. Jake Paul's done his thing, couple of knockdowns, got the stoppage victory over him, bounces into what we believe will be Mike Tyson in November. Just give us your whole take on what's going on over there with Jake.
Well, I did stay up for it. I was majorly disappointed. Jake Paul looked a stone and a half heavier than Mike Perry, utterly dominated him. He looked huge. Look, this he's a marketing genius. He's got huge cojones. He very carefully selects his opponents. I like the call out of Alex Pereira. Yeah. I still worry about Mike Tyson stepping into the ring against him at his age, late 50s. But I do feel that Jake Paul, with his power and money, will manipulate him, or he'll be manipulated into a world title fight at cruiserweight at some point. He must have been 220 pounds in there. He looked enormous. Yeah. And he was just too big for Mike Perry, who obviously doesn't have boxing skills, very good in MMA, very good in bare knuckle. But I think once he felt the power of Jake Paul, who, let's be honest, Jake is a limited but very strong athlete who's addicted to boxing, with a massive following, 17,000 in there. Again, they sold it really well last week. I mean, Amanda Serrano and her opponent looked a bit of a mismatch as well. She was mercifully stopped. The fight was mercifully stopped after 2 rounds because there was no answer. And it was very similar in the main event. Jake Paul could have got him out of there easily, but he did in the 6th round in the end. A bit disappointing, really.
You mentioned there about him fighting at some point for a world title. I saw the WBA come out and say they never mentioned the words world title. I think let's be clear, unless I've misread that. It was, I think, Mendoza talking about him potentially fighting for some form of belt against the likes of a Chavez Jr. But in terms of, you mentioned they're fighting for a world title, we talk about concern for Mike Tyson. Could you imagine him in there against a legitimate world champion, from what you've seen so far? When you look at the names and you go and look at that sort of list and go, you'd be concerned, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, I know he's not a world champion anymore in that division. He's a bridgerweight now. But imagine Jake Paul in against Lawrence Okoli.
No.
I imagine, obviously, he's at Bridger now, but imagine him in against Gilberto Ramirez or Jaya Pataya or Chris Billum-Smith. I think Noel Mikhalian and Badu Jack are the WBC guys. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think they're going to have to wait for, I mean, those guys are too skilled. All of them are too skilled and too dangerous for Jake Paul. How they maneuver it, I don't know, but I just got a feeling that they might maneuver a fight there at some point for him against, like you say, a title. And he'll always claim he won the world title, whether it be the WBA America's title or whatever they're going to call it. But the point is, him and his brother have 45 million social media followers. And as we always know in boxing, it's business as well. And, if they can put bums on seats, they'll find a way to do it, in my view, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah. A fight that has not been announced, but we've heard it's finalised. Canelo Alvarez, we believe, according to reports, I believe, from Mike Coppinger, will face mandatory challenger Edgar Berlanga on the 14th of September. Same week, I believe, as the UFC in the Sphere, so they'll be going head-to-head with that. I thought they might have gone week after and split it up, but no, apparently going head-to-head. First off, in terms of the fight, there were talks with Chris Eubank Jr. Seems we're further and further away from ever fighting a Benavidez. Is it a bit of a deflation, sort of hearing news like that, or?
Well, I think we were all hoping he'd fight Chris Eubank. It would bring Saul Canelo Alvarez into focus with the UK market. Not sure what's happened there. I'm not sure why, if Chris Eubank Jr. isn't facing him, why he didn't fight on the Wembley card for that reason. He feels a bit frozen out. Maybe there's still talks for him to fight Conor Benn. That was the disappointment. But Berlanga is the #1 challenger with the WBA, and he's 4-4 with the IBF and the WBO. So, you know, I think he's 9 with the WBC. So it's not like he's not a veritable challenger, because he is.
100%.
But it is slightly disappointing, and we know we're building towards Canelo fighting Crawford, Terence Crawford, sometime next year, because Turki Al-Sheikh's already mentioned it, that those talks are underway. And obviously, Terence Crawford's got to go through Israel Madrimov in a big fight in Los Angeles next week, a big event in Los Angeles, the first Saudi Arabian Riyadh season event outside Saudi Arabia, obviously to dovetail with the one in London at Wembley Stadium on September 24th. So that's a big event next week. But yeah, it is disappointing in a way, even though Berlanga deserves his opportunity as well. You can't take that away from him.
Yeah, in terms of an opponent, I think, yeah, he completely deserves his chance. He's waited. He's here now. I've no issues with it, really. It's just because of all the talk around what people are saying they want to see. Obviously, the fans who are crying out for a Benavidez fight, and obviously, even from the UK, I know there was talks of a Eubank Jr. But yeah, do you see in that fight? Do you think that's a competitive fight? Do you think it's a more competitive fight than a Eubank Jr.?
I think it is, actually. You know, I like Berlanga.
Good
But
fight.
again, I don't see him beating Canelo. I'm afraid. I don't see. Listen, he's decent. He's young. He's undefeated. 17 knockouts in his 22 victories. Listen, it's a decent fight. Like you say, he's got youth on his side, the Puerto Rican. He's tall, but we've seen before that Canelo can deal with taller guys, 6'1". But there's something disappointing in it, in that we're not getting the biggest fights we could possibly get. I mean, his last 4 opponents: Steve Rolls, Romer Angulo, Jason Quigley was a good victory. Padraig McCrory was a good victory. But you know, 5 out of his last 6 fights have been by unanimous decision. 3 10-round fights, an undisputed, a 12-round unanimous decision victory against Jason Quigley. So look, it's not going to be a global super fight. And it's like, I hate to say Canelo going through the motions, Matt, but Chris Eubank Jr. may have not even put up as big a challenge as Berlanga, but I think it would have drawn the crowds, and I think it would have got a British audience interested. And maybe we're biased because we'd like to have seen that.
Yeah, no, agree with you.
Does he beat Terence Crawford though?
I don't know.
I think Crawford may win that fight. It's a brilliant fight.
Depending on the weight, I will wait and see what the weight's made at, because I'm under no illusion. I think Terence will do okay at the weight now. I think, by the way, I think the Madrimov fight, I know we're talking about, we'd love to see Books. Madrimov is an absolute banger of a fight.
He is. He reminds me of Gennady Golovkin. Obviously, he's not a middleweight great at the moment. He's a light middleweight, but he's not a great in the way that in the way that Triple G was. Yeah, no, really, one of the modern greats of middleweight, and he can live with anyone in the middleweight division, from Bernard Hopkins to Marvin Hagler. I think he belongs in that ilk. And we all know that he beat Canelo in that first fight. That was obviously a split draw, but he should have won that fight. It's as simple as that. And I'm just writing an essay on Golovkin for my book. You know, the man that ran into a bear in Big Bear, and the bear ran away. As the story goes, that Abel Sanchez, he was as Abel Sanchez's coach, Charles, because the bear realised that there was no point challenging Gennady Golovkin, who's got an amazing backstory. And we mustn't forget that he really is one of the modern greats of the middleweight division.
Yeah, I know. I've seen in a recent interview as well that he's not putting a label on his absence out the ring. You know, if I suppose if he could be teased into one more, I don't know. I mean, he's his own man, but you know,
No, but we've seen at the age of 40 that he's not what he was, and I think Canelo won the second fight. It was close, but I think he really aged. Father Time had caught up with him by the trilogy with Canelo. Yeah.
last two from me: Top Rank and Golden Boy partnership with Riyadh Season. Obviously Riyadh Season, His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh have hands in obviously Queensbury Matchroom, now Top Rank and Golden Boy. It's because this umbrella is now getting, you know, it's a huge umbrella. Everyone's sort of falling under it now. Only a couple left. For X amount of fights, it says. Um, what do you make of that? The acquisition of, you know, them shows for however long it lasts.
Well, to carry on your analogy of the umbrella, it's raining Riyadh everywhere in the boxing world, isn't it? You know, I think it's really good news because it spells and speaks of cooperation. It spells and speaks of the big fights being made. I don't. People are using the term "the takeover" by His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh. I don't see it as that. I see it as bringing everyone together in the sport. I don't see it as a takeover. Top Rank tell me that it's. I've delved into a little. Top Rank. I think it's really good news, by the way. That's what I will say. The spirit of cooperation is always welcomed in boxing. Like you say, 4 of the major promoters in the world involved is amazing. You really only over here need to get Ben Shalom involved and Al Heyman over in the States, and you've really got the what we call the sextuplet of involvement. 6 promoters, the main 6 promoters in the world, all involved. I think it's great news. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Japanese involved as well very soon. I just think it's a sign from, without giving away that what is really Chatham House rules and an off-the-record briefing with His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh in London a few weeks ago. But he wants to try and bring promoters together to work together. I don't think he's taking over. I think everyone else is going to be running their own business. You know, there's even, and I can't stand this up, there's even talk, of course, of Queensbury Promotions moving to DAZN at some point in the future. Yeah. We don't know about that yet. Frank Warren said he's still got a great relationship with TNT Sports, that was BT Sport. He had a long and fruitful relationship with them, notably through Tyson Fury and others. But I just see it coming together all the time. And I think it's really good for the sport, Matt. Top Rank tell me it's an associative relationship with Riyadh Season, branding Riyadh Season on their events. But what it shows is this isn't a flash in the pan from His Excellency and his team and the Saudi Arabian investment. It's made the sport better already in a year. A year ago, you and I sat on some of our broadcasts together and we lamented the state of boxing. The heavyweight fights weren't happening. The Conor Benn scenario wasn't resolved. And these moves are the kind of moves that will resolve those things very quickly, because the irons are hot and it's time to strike for all these fighters right now and get in big fights, make them happen. The money's available and people are coming back to the sport. The fans are coming back and they can see who the champions are going to be.
100%. I think it's night and day from 18 months ago. And I think you can see now, in terms of all the complaints that maybe a casual fan would have, they're sort of being brushed to the side.
It's a lot quieter, isn't it, now? That kind of, that dark noise on social media, it's kind of gone away.
Yeah. The last one, and this revolves around a big fight, a fight that was in negotiation, but it's not anymore. Gervonta Davis, Lomachenko. Lomachenko, apparently, I think Klimas could put out saying not motivated to fight for the rest of this year. Bit of a disappointment, but every cloud, silver lining. Shakur Stevenson. Can we see that fight now? That could really sort of kick that fight on, which is a lot of people's minds would say that is a better fight, and both will get the credit for a victory over one another, rather than if Tank fought Loma, if he beat Loma, although the hardcores may credit it, they will say possibly an aging Loma, not at his best. Whereas if Shakur beats Tank and Tank beats Shakur, it's these two are in the prime.
Great. Yeah, I mean, Lomachenko against Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis are 2 fights I would love to see before he straps up and straps his saddles to his great horses, and just heads out onto the plains to call it a day. But I'm not that disappointed. Yeah, I have read that story, that Eggers was negotiating for him to have the fight, Eggers Klimas, to have the fight with Tank Davis. And Loma turned around and said, no, the truth is I'm not really ready to have a fight this year right now. I've got things going on at home. The war is still going on in Ukraine. There's things he needs to sort out with family. Doesn't want to go into a camp for 10 weeks right now and have a fight in the autumn. He'd rather come back next year. No problem there. He's a very wealthy man and he's not driven by money. But I agree with you. Tank Davis against Shakur Stevenson is the American super fight right now. It is the American super fight. Ryan Garcia's out of the sport. Devin Haney's for a year. Devin Haney's taken a sabbatical, as he said. Tank Davis against Shakur Stevenson is enormous. If they could get that over the line with the right amounts of money, then it would really work. I think I want to see. Tank is still, I think, under Al Heyman. Right. So let's see, maybe Turki Al-Sheikh create a relationship with Al Heyman, who I hear he has a good relationship with him, and they do talk. Yeah. Shakur needs to sort out who he's going to go with. Obviously, he was teasing he was with Eddie Hearn the other day. Top Rank have offered him $15 million for his next 5 fights. He's a free agent at the moment. So where he goes and where he sits, I think is going to be very important right now. And if he went to Al Heyman right now, or if he went anywhere, that fight's doable and makeable. And it's a really good time for Shakur to have that fight. He hasn't got great improvement to do. We lament and complain, or we don't, but people do. Yeah. He's not exciting enough. He doesn't go in for the kill. Terrific. But let's see if his boxing skills would suit him against Tank Davis. Because Tank is really, on the optics, on the eye test, with the fans at the moment, is a little rung ahead of Shakur at the moment.
I think as well, I think Tank's underrated. He's got underrated, I would say, boxing IQ, because you see the knockout powers and the way he finishes the fight. And I think sometimes that can take over from what he's actually done to set them shots up to make, like the Ryan Garcia fight. He had a quick look at him in the first round. He was looking a little bit in the second. And when he sort of, don't want to use the words downloading data, because every man and dog says it now, but he's spotting the patterns and picking his shots right. And to go against someone like Shakur, who's, a genius as well when he goes in the ring. For me, that's the fight I want to see before the end of this year.
Yeah, I think the best expression for downloading data is fight IQ. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. And I don't know where downloading data came from, but I think it's an MMA term. But look, that fighting IQ is very important. Tank looks amazing at the moment, but he also looks amazing in the build-up to a fight. His confidence levels, that kind of aura of invincibility, Matt, and that aura of menace that he carries with him. He's really using everything he's got and where he's from, from Baltimore, from Maryland, all that kind of kid from the projects, the tough upbringing that he had. He's using all of that against his opponents. Him against Shakur, what a build-up and what a fight it would be. It truly is a fight that I think it's as big as any other fight on earth, barring Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua if they win their respective fights up and coming, because they're heavyweights. That's the only reason it makes a difference.
100%. Well, look, Gareth, we've boxed off everything I wanted to talk about this evening. I appreciate you doing it at such a late hour and jumping.
You're welcome. You're always welcome.
Brilliant. And look, we'll catch up soon. There's going to be plenty to talk about after this weekend, and we'll roll on into LA and all these other big fights that are coming up. September for Canelo, etc. And we'll see. But yeah,
you're always welcome. And also, I'm looking forward to Dennis McCann, Jon Baluta rematch this weekend, and also seeing how Moses Itauma does against Marius Wack, who's 44, 50, almost 50 fights. Moses Itauma, the takeover, the new coming force in the heavyweight division. Can he make a statement and stop Marius Wack in 4 or 5 rounds? I think he probably can. I'm looking forward to seeing that as well.
100%. Yeah, Baluta and McCann. I've seen the shape of Dennis McCann, been in his, had a look in his camp when it was starting. He looks bang up for this one. So
he does. and he's very happy in Liverpool training there apparently as well. So you know,
Yeah, looks it. Joe Mack and Team Deco Rock up there. They've got a good solid stable. So let's see. Gareth, appreciate it. Catch up soon.